All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this photography workshop. Today, we're talking about the post taking photos workflow and organization strategy that when we've prepared this, we realize it's going to be different for everyone. But what we're hoping to do is provide some guidance and basic strategies that are best practices, and some of this might be a refresher for those of you who have been doing this for a while, but basically what we're going to be doing is talk about what happens after the shoot. We're going to talk about file management, organization, and what our recommendations are for how you save photos onto your computer or hard drive or cloud or whatever. With that, talking about backing up your photos, best practices for that. And of course, talking about Lightroom, and this will be applicable with other editing or organization apps if you use something else as well. We'll talk about client delivery, options for that, and all sorts of other stuff. So we've got a little presentation. We'll be sharing our own Lightroom catalogs and organization in a little bit as well. So what happens after the shoot? Typically, what we're going to do is we are going to download our photos from our memory card. And even saying that, I'm like, well, sometimes I just send my photos straight from my camera to my phone. And so there's like a lot of different options, I guess. But the typical strategy is we import our photos straight from our memory card onto our computer or onto a hard drive. You can do this through Lightroom as well. Like some people will, instead of just saving from the documents folder or your drive folder, you can actually do this through Lightroom. But all three of us, we realize we all just simply save our photos from the memory card to our hard drive or to our computer, and we don't go through Lightroom. But we can show you how that works if you're interested. I don't know if it's just, I don't know, why do you guys not go through Lightroom? Is it just kind of like what you've done always, or any
I
specific reason?
I was taught to, with both, and this is more from the video side, but with video and photo, I was just taught that when you go to download, like you finish the production, you finish the shoot, you take that memory card and you back it up. You dump it in one place and then you dump it in another place, but you download from the memory card. And
Mm-hmm.
so to just import into Lightroom, I mean, it would back it up somewhere that Lightroom has set up, where you can set up where you want the photos saved if you do it through Lightroom. You can do it that way, but it's just easier to click and drag from the card onto one hard drive and then click and drag it onto another hard drive. And that was the
Yeah.
backup process. Yeah, it's just how I learned it, I guess.
I think the same, but for me, it's just, I think in my brain, it's just easier to like put the card on. Here's where it's going. Here's where it's going. Here's where it's going. In the past, I have done it through Lightroom, and like it does speed things up if you want to like walk away from your computer. Because like in Lightroom,
Yeah.
when you import photos from a card into a folder, you can set its target, you can tell it to build previews, you can put tags on it, you can do a ton of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Add it to collections
Add it to
and sets,
collections,
which
and
we'll
you can
talk
just
about later.
hit go and then walk away. But I don't know. I just always, I have so many cards when I shoot weddings and projects that it's easier for me to know everything all at once, get it done, and then import it in the Lightroom.
Yeah, and I think we typically just save all of our photos to our drive. I could see an argument being made where you would want to go through Lightroom if you're only selecting certain photos to save. And I think all of us would recommend just save all of them. You just never know if you're going to have a photo that you don't like now, but maybe in the future you look back and you really like it. I mean, it depends on how trigger friendly you are, or that kind of thing. Like sometimes you're
Yeah.
taking photos and whatever, if you're learning and your focus is just totally off and you've got one good photo to 20 out of focus photos, maybe you don't need to save all those photos. And going through something like Lightroom helps you filter out ahead of time. But our strategy is pretty much we save all of our photos, all of our RAWs and JPEGs. Do you guys shoot RAW and JPEG or just RAW
Just raw
generally?
for me.
I've never shot JPEG. I understand it, but I've just never, I'm always gonna either I'm going to go to Lightroom and I'm going to mess with things, and it might be then like, oh, this is a perfect photo and I don't need to do anything, but that's happened maybe twice in my life. So like no matter what, it's coming into Lightroom and I'm gonna export it from there, take the raw and export it into whatever format, probably JPEG. After
Yeah.
but
There are
So-
reasons to shoot JPEG. I just
there are.
don't.
Like I have a question about that because I shoot RAW plus JPEG so that when I have my photos on my camera, when I'm out on a shoot or traveling, I can simply send those JPEGs from my camera to my phone to share or do like a minor edit. There are options, and I don't know how it works on your cameras. Like, can you send photos to your phone still and it converts it to JPEG, or does your phone just process RAW
So you
photos?
can with our cameras, or I don't know what cameras Sam's going to talk about, but with the Leicas that I have, the Photos apps will allow you to transfer it as a DNG, so the raw,
Yeah.
or like a tiny preview photo, which is like
Yeah.
big enough for like posting or like texting or something. But
Yeah.
you run into the same issue. Like if you're gonna edit it, like the raw, the DNG is still gonna have more room digitally to manipulate it than a preview or a JPEG would.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
Okay.
that just is dependent on how much you want to edit it or not edit it. And so
Right.
you know, that's a personal thing.
Yeah.
All right, so-
I know if you're working like in a really fast-paced culture and you're taking event photos and really like you're not going to do that much manipulation, you just need to deliver. People, you shoot JPEG and because you can hand off the card. There's no processing. It's just it looks how it looks. And they don't need anything more than that, and they know that. And
Yeah.
so it does take a lot less space to have a bunch of JPEGs than it does to
Yeah.
have a bunch of RAWs. But I've never seen the reason, like, just buy a bigger hard drive, in my opinion. Like,
Yeah. Space
unless
is
you
pretty
have 10
affordable nowadays.
photographers shooting thousands of photos for an event, at which point I get it, but yeah, it's just safety. So
Yeah. Cool. All right. So question, do you back up before or after editing? I have a couple of slides, but we could talk about this. So from what we kind of brainstormed ahead of time, Sam's process, and similar to mine, I feel like, is that we download our photos to like a working hard drive. And this could be like a laptop that we're working on, or maybe an external hard drive that is your like working hard drive. And so we save our photos to that drive, then we'll edit them. And then after we're done editing the photos, we do a master backup. And we'll talk more about how we back up. Sam, is that kind of what your process is?
yeah, but I back up when I first download. So
Okay.
for whatever reason, I've always been told, and I don't think it's never happened in recent years. I think cards have gone a lot better, but there's a time when you could download from a card, and there's a chance a file was corrupted or something didn't transfer right. And so if you just copied what you downloaded off the card, there's a chance that you were just copying a bad download. So I download from the card to one drive, and then I download from the card to another drive. And that's how I start my process. From there, like I typically download to my laptop on one of those so that then I can edit the photos on my laptop. And then I'll pull it out. I have a 4 terabyte solid state drive. Little space. And this has so much space when it comes to photography that I can put everything on there as a backup. From there though, and we'll get to this, but I have my 40 terabyte massive storage in which my life is backed up onto, and that comes later in the process. But yeah.
Got it. And so that maybe that's a little bit more similar to what Will does. You said that you download your raw photos to your working drive and a backup.
Yeah.
And then you import to your Lightroom. You back up your Lightroom catalog.
Yeah.
To the backup drive.
Yeah. So the actual catalog is a file, like, right? And it's
Mhm.
the type of file is I just looked at one for calling, but it's a .ircat. It's
LR.
LR. So it's like a .lightroom catalog file.
Yeah.
And that file, every time I'm done editing or working on it, I will back that up to the backup drive, because that is what holds all your ratings for all your stuff, all your metadata for what your edits are, everything. And it's not that big, like it's really small. And so you can kind of take that catalog and put it places. And then, like, yeah, same thing with Sam, like those cards I send to 2 different drives, because if there is a corruption in one thing and I'm transferring from one drive to the other, it's going to carry over. So I just want to go from card to card.
Got it. And so before we talk about kind of what you do after the edit, I think I do what maybe more people do who aren't as good at backing up. And I kind of want to just share this because, you know, I think what your guys' process is probably a little bit better and more foolproof. But what I do is often I will just download my card to one folder on my laptop and work off of that. And then I back up. And I think the risk there is that, yeah, what happens if while I download it, between backing it up to a backup drive while I'm working on it, my laptop crashes and then I lose those photos. So probably the best, what?
It's still on your card.
Still on my card, which is probably like, yeah, probably a good thing would be to make sure that I'm not formatting that card until it's backed up, which is probably a pretty good plan, I would say.
That's a really good plan. And that's what I do. I just shot a wedding on Saturday, and I had shot on 6 cards between 2 cameras, and I put them all on this drive that's right next to us right now. And I have not backed it up yet, but they're on the card, and I flip them upside down in my card wallet, and it's back at the house. So they're separated and they still exist in 2 places.
Yeah.
So they're still on your card, you know, that's not a bad thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and also I will say, like, I don't know that I have ever, because I don't shoot weddings. And even when I film, like, shoot events, like, I've done 2 memory cards, but the concept of taking photos over 6 memory cards is not something I personally run into. So
yeah,
like, I'll back up but I always have this little pouch that I walk around with. And this has 4 separate hard drives in it. That's all my work that I'm working on right now.
Yeah.
This travels with me. All the backup drives are in my desk in a safe place that don't travel with me. And I just keep them separate. But I have to come here, I have to do the backup process, you know, and do that whole thing.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess, like, hopefully that makes sense about, like, I guess our advice though would be to back up the photos to a hard drive and a working drive. If you are only downloading them to your computer that you're working off of, or an external hard drive you're working off of, make sure you leave those photos on your memory card until it's all backed up. Will's process continues where, what's this so when you're making selects and uploading JPEGs to the cloud, that you said is before you edit them,
right? So typically,
or is that after?
So that's before I edit them, and typically that's for, like, proofs. So, like, if I'm editing like a headshot session, and we'll look at it in my Lightroom, I'll make all the selects of the best ones, and, you know, if a shoot of like 200 photos, I'll probably upload like 30. So then those are unedited into the cloud. I know they're there, but they're also so the client can review them and pick out the 5 that they want edited. I don't do that with weddings necessarily, because that's a lot. Unless it's like a really big wedding. But
Got it. And then we edit, export, save those backups to our backup drives, to some sort of cloud storage, and then often send them to our phone, which we'll be sharing from as well. We'll talk a little bit more about that in future slides. In terms of external hard drives, we did want to just mention some best practices for choosing an external hard drive. You definitely want to invest in a brand name, and there's lots of brand names now. You could see some of them below. SanDisk, G-Tech, Samsung, Western Digital, Lacey, G-Drive, Seagate, Toshiba. Hard drives are pretty good, but they crash. And I'm knocking on wood now because I've actually never had a hard drive crash, which is like so lucky.
Really?
Wow.
Never ever.
That's
And I've said this on camera before, so it's I haven't jinxed myself yet, but it's
gonna
the
happen.
thing you hear is like this happens, and it looks like from you this has happened in the past.
yeah.
But obviously you want to make sure you're double backed up on multiple drives. Solid state drives are better quality, better for traveling around with. They don't have like the moving parts that typical drives have. In terms of
I did just have my
More
first
faster,
problem
yeah.
with a solid state drive though recently.
Really?
Yeah, with a SanDisk one, it would not mount. It just
Mm.
wouldn't.
A
And I-
brand new one, or
Brand new one.
Huh.
I mean, I had stuff on it, so it was
Right,
not
you
new.
had-
Yeah,
you
I
had
had put
but you
stuff
had
on
been
it, but I had
using it.
backed it up, so I had to go to my backup. Yeah, I had to
Oh.
use it. Like it would come up sometimes, but then it would dismount, and it would like. And
That's
I know it's
weird.
not my computer because everything
That's
else works.
scary.
Yeah, it was on long enough.
Sam,
for me
you
to-
you mentioned RPM. I think 7,200. Do you know much about?
400. So I randomly one time I got asked to give a talk at a hard drive storage convention. Like it was like a talk, people talking about hard drives in that state, and being like a video person, I was sort of giving feedback on it. For whatever reason, they stopped really. You have to look pretty hard to figure out if a hard drive is 5,400 RPM or 7,200 RPM. And it really only
Mhm.
matters if you're working with like a bunch of RAWs, or you're really filling it up, or you're working with like high megapixel cameras or video, specifically video. But
Mhm.
even my 60 megapixel raw photos, it takes a lot. So 7,200 basically is just how fast the disk can read and write, and so it moves
Yeah.
fast and can work on higher resolution things. But actually the coolest thing I learned during that whole thing was that all newer hard drives, they actually put helium inside where the disk is spinning. So back in the day when I've had my hard drives crash because you're moving around and like the disk moves and
It
it
just breaks. Yeah.
breaks, they've now inject helium so it actually floats. So it's actually there's a barrier in there, and it's much harder to mess up those disks at this point. But
like this one.
like that one. But the solid state drives can read and write, 10 times as fast
It's true.
as a
Yeah.
disk. So if you're not having issues with it, then it's not an issue, whatever hard drive you had at this time. But if you're ever feeling like, wow, like I open up Lightroom and have my hard drive plugged in and it is chugging, more than likely it's because you have a hard drive that just can't read and write fast enough for how much information you're trying to process. And that's where a solid state drive, or specifically finding like, I know that G-Tech and LaCie make 7,200 RPM ones, but you kind of have to like do the research to find the details of it. And it can make a big difference if you're noticing that's moving slow. It's another thing though that I download to my laptop and initially work off my computer, because it's not reading off of an external thing. It's reading from my computer. And so long as I have the space and I take those off after the fact, so I don't fill up my computer with photos, it reads and writes a lot faster. But
that's probably best practice, is working off your computer, laptop, or a solid state drive if you're having issues. I mean, the technology has gotten so much better with, USB 3 compared to when we were starting, and just the connections themselves were not fast enough to edit off of. We had a great question from one of our members, Colleen, listening in right now, asking about how long we keep our photos, like forever, for 5 years. I think it's going to change depending on if it's personal, if it's client work. I can speak to wedding videos and say that I actually went through a process of deleting the raw video. I kept all the final edits and stuff, but from like 5+ years ago. Part of it's just that I don't do wedding videos anymore, so it's not like, I just feel like you know, I don't know what would happen to make a client come back to me and be like, I need that raw video, all that raw video.
Right. Or if you were still doing wedding videos, maybe you need to go back and make an epic reel and you need a shot.
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah.
But that's if you still a wedding videographer.
But for photos and stuff, well, you
Keep everything.
keep it forever.
Yeah, I mean, I think there I was for a time looking into like a way of archiving stuff, like burning DVDs of files of older files, and just archiving them. But now it's just like, I think it's gotten to the point that hard drives are progressing so fast that I don't need to make room on these old hard drives to use them because they're too old. I don't want to use them anyway. So I just leave older photos on them and pack them away once I'm done using them and move on. But I've gotten to the system, and I guess we could talk about it more later, but like, you know, 1 hard drive a year or 2 hard drives a year, and it's just piles up. I have had to go back and get some photos for some clients. Mostly there's been times where like a couple's parents may have passed away and they're looking for a very specific photo, or maybe back in the day I didn't deliver everything that they wanted and they just wanted to look to see if they had something extra, or, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
I mean, one of the best things I did recently during COVID, it was a great COVID project that my brother helped me with, was I had probably like 20, 30 external hard drives that went from old Firewire?
Yeah.
Or
Firewire,
all these
yeah.
old connections and put everything onto new USB 3
That's amazing.
hard drives.
That's
Which is,
amazing.
I posted a picture on Instagram. It was like all these drives into 2, and it was, everything's double backed up. I mean, we can talk more about like how many backups is enough, but it's always a little scary.
I will say though, to this point of what you're saying of like getting rid of things that you've shot for clients, Will never gets rid of things. When you deliver those end photos to a client, if you're like, most of the times I feel like people use Dropbox or G Drive or, you know, this online cloud method. I always tell them like, you need to download these photos because I'm going to be deleting them off my online cloud thing in a month. Because I've had so many clients come back and be like, hey, I was looking for this photo. I'm like, well, you really should download from that because I removed the folder and they have to go back and find it. But if I deliver things, and that's what I told them I would deliver, they have it then. And it's not my responsibility. And I feel okay with getting those things later.
Yeah.
That being said, like Will said, if you want to use it for portfolio work, if you want to use it for that, I do have backups of my pride, like things that I know I'm really proud of. But yeah, I've gone back. My massive 40 terabyte drive goes back to 2015. And I've slowly gotten rid of like silly music videos we filmed, or, you know, photos for the Loyal in our school newspaper, like things I'm never going to go back to. But at the same time, it's kind of fun to go
until
down
they make a documentary about your life, Sam, and they're
exactly.
we need photos from the Loyal Inn. Colleen makes a good point. Kind of a question, which I don't do. I don't keep my hard drive in a fire safe box. It should be though. Absolutely should be.
I do try and practice the 2 different locations. So
that's good.
I have a hard drive here at my shared workspace in under lock and key, and then I have the other things back at my house.
That's a good thing.
Having a fire safe though I need that for like just my social security card and birth certificate probably.
All right, so let's talk more about specific organization, both on your computer or hard drive, and then we'll dive into Lightroom. So there's all kinds of strategies, and there really is no right or wrong method. Here's a few that people commonly use: structuring by date. So having your folders by year, and then subfolders by month, by day, and maybe naming the day a particular shoot or something like that. Another is by client or job. So if you work for multiple companies, you might have the client folder or the client hard drive. And then maybe under that, you have it either by project number or by date. Other people might do like by style. So maybe you have personal in one folder and then weddings in another, or your personal, and then your professional, and then under there you have your by date. And so I think there's no right or wrong for saving to your hard drive. If you are starting out and you're not doing professional and personal work, if it's just all personal work, probably by date is a good idea. It just keeps it organized. But if you are doing more paid work, doing it by style or by client or by professional versus personal is probably a good thing. The other thing to note too is this is on your hard drive. You can organize by any of these methods within Lightroom as collections or catalogs. So if in my mind, it makes sense for me because I don't do a ton of professional versus personal work, that everything I do is on my hard drives as date, because in my mind, I can kind of like remember, like go chronologically, like what shoots I did. But then within Lightroom, I organize it more by project, like business versus personal. And we'll show you that in a minute about how we
One thing I will say that I started doing with mine, like here, I think I use sort of more the method 3, but for my folders, like under work, I have, like I've been doing work with Stanford, so then I have the Stanford folder, and then I put currently for this year I'll do 2/2 this month, 1/0, and then the date 1/7. So in the file name, it has the whole year and date thing in the beginning, and then it'll have sort of the job title and whatnot. But the idea is that because I'm horrible with when I don't know what happened in July versus August. I have no idea like which shoots happened in which month. But if I can do a search, and I can search either a date or the project name, then I'll be able to find it. So I make sure somewhere in my filing system, I both have the date and then the project name or the client name or something. And that way I know I'll be able to find it. But I really, for me, the organization strategies is so important that it's something that makes sense to your brain. Because I think everyone has different things that make sense of like, way to put it. Oh no, it needs to be by year, or oh no, it needs to be by client. And it's just people's brains work different when it comes to this. Like this is the one thing where I was like, I feel like we're all like we all have different ways that the three of us view it.
So I don't think there's necessarily a perfect example. Here is what I do. Like I'll have folders on my working drive and also in my backup that it's like the year, the month, and I title my months like 1 January, 2 February, etc., so that it's in order, and then date, and kind of like you said, I have the keyword for what the shoot was that day, so that I know, like if it was like October 15th, like I don't know what that means, but if it's October 15th, family portraits, I understand that. And then underneath that folder, I have folders for my raw photos, the JPEG, because I do shoot raw and JPEG, and then my edits folder as well.
Right.
We kind of talked about this already, but just to go over it just again, photo protection is key. Solid state drives are durable, pricier. Always back up 2 to 3 times for paid work. This could be 2 external backups plus a working drive, and then also back up your photos online, at least your final edits. You guys don't back up your raw photos online, do you?
No, I mean, I pay for Lightroom to have the ability to do it, but I never do it.
Yeah, like, if you're using like Lightroom, the new version of Photoshop Lightroom, it's cloud-based. So if you're editing off RAWs, it will be backed up on the cloud. But
yeah, I think so. All my personal work, I use just regular Lightroom, and so that I think automatically backs up those RAWs. But I don't do a ton of, like, I'm not doing crazy amounts of personal stuff. So.
I think
that's too expensive to back up RAWs.
Yeah, like on the internet,
on the cloud. Like it would fill it up so quick. But I do back up like my portfolio, like super high res exports
Yeah.
of my favorites. And I do back those up in the cloud. And I also oftentimes will go to that folder because it's quicker to access
Than
photos I
finding
want
a
to
drive.
share. Yeah, like
Yeah.
most of the time I'm not looking for like that bad photo I don't really like. I'm looking for that great shot that I knew that I love. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think just to hit the nail on the head, the 2 location rule is a good one. So if you are backing up your photos, it's a good idea to have them in 2 locations if possible. If that's 2 rooms in your house, that's all, or, you know, leave your at your parents' house if you can, or an office or something. Having your master backups in 2 locations is a smart idea. FireSafe Box is probably even a better idea. As on top of that, what I do just as a personal organization method is that
Wow.
every month, and I'm not gonna lie, it doesn't happen every single month. Sometimes it happens every few months. But what I've been actually really good at since I've had kids mostly is doing a master cleanse backup every few months where I go through all of my, because to be honest, I don't organize this way from the get-go all the time. When I go out on a shoot, I'm not saving the photos to my master backups. Kind of like I said, I'm often just downloading them to my laptop or a working hard drive and work off that. But I like having a very organized master backup that's double backed up that I can always go back to. And this is how I organize it. And so every month I go through all of my drives, all of my memory cards that are in my cameras still that have photos on them. And I just save everything. I'll even go through my mobile photos and I'll send all the good mobile photos that I take, all my videos, and I just throw them into folders for every month. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way through 12.
Right.
And this has been sort of a great,
It's really
just
well
a great way
organized,
to,
man.
yeah, it's pretty, it's one of my accomplishments that I'm most proud of.
Yeah.
And it's just great because now I can easily go back and see, especially with kids, it's different. Like I can go back and see like when they were 1 or 2, I know I have those photos in those specific folders. So
Right.
something that you can do as well. Speaking of cloud storage, here's just some numbers for if you don't have cloud storage. I'm on the Google Drive 2 terabyte plan, but I might have to bump up. And this is for personal stuff and business stuff, but I pay about $100 a year for that. I guess Amazon Prime, do you guys use this? They have unlimited photo storage.
No, it's so hard because it's like it's just
If you're a
another
member.
platform. Yeah, I mean, I am a
Yeah.
member, and it's like it's there, but like I don't, because Google, because for our business we use Google so much because it comes with like docs and sheets and
Yeah.
everything else that it's like everything's integrated. So
I will say,
Yeah.
I have a friend who works with Dropbox and we just did a shoot with Dropbox and like, they're trying so hard to like, come on, we're cool. We have like all these cool features, like you should use, you know, da da da. And I was like, it's just so hard to beat Google to me because
Yeah.
Google email, I have
It's
the
just so easy
calendar,
to be
Docs and
connected.
Sheets. It's yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Amazon.
I mean, Dropbox is even more expensive. And OneDrive is also more expensive for the
we had
for
OneDrive,
2
we
terabytes,
used
but
Box.
we use Box, which
Remember
is
Box?
Microsoft one.
Box is another one.
That is really expensive. Though.
Also, my cloud storage I use is partly Apple and Zenfolio.
Okay. We'll talk about that in a minute, but just an idea. And this, I think for all of us is for saving our edited photos after the fact.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about client delivery. So, and we're gonna get to Lightroom in a minute. We're gonna talk about organization there and show that. But client delivery for people who do run a business and want to deliver photos, generally you could either just use your cloud storage like a Google Drive where you are putting up folders and sharing photos, and that's fine. But if you want more control about how clients can see photos, access photos, like maybe even what are all the options that you can do with like a platform like Zenfolio, Will? And here's some
man.
alternatives as well: Pixieset, Pixpa, Shootproof, SmugMug. There's lots of other ones out there as well.
And we can take a look at my Zen after we go through Lightroom. But the big thing for me with Zenfolio is being able to like cloud storage to store everything, but then you can also customize the way it looks for your client. So they will look at a nicer sort of interface versus like a Google or a Dropbox. On top of that, they can log in and have their own login where they could make selects for like, oh, I want these for prints, or I want these to be the ones that are edited. I can have a whole file structure for them with password protecting each access to file for certain people, or password protecting the downloads. It's just totally customizable and totally like interfacing with your client a little bit more cleanly. And if you pay higher for the Zenfolio, you can get rid of all their logos. So it looks like it's your website and your business. Zen is just what I've been using forever, like 5, 6, 7 years maybe. And it's just worked for me. I mean, everything.
I feel like a lot of websites have tried to copy that. Like even Dropbox is doing that. Google's tried to do that somewhat with like allowing people to add comments or like leave notes or like sort of have some of that interaction. But some of these are more set to the photographer. And I won't even say that this is necessarily storage. Like this is much more so like,
client delivery.
Yeah, well, but it's not even just delivery though. It's like, it's how you interface with them. It's how you have a conversation of like, we like these, make these changes, like
client interaction.
Yeah, like it's as a professional photographer, how you're going to, go through the process of, here's the first round, and here's the, the edits I made, and here's the third final delivery. And making it look as clean, opposed to like, here's a Google Drive folder.
Pick your numbers.
Send me an email that's convoluted and like, oh, I really like the image DCS654321. Like, it cleans that whole process.
Zenfolio, you can export your client's list of photos that they pick, and then you can import that into Lightroom, and it will create a collection in Lightroom of what your client picked. So I don't have to go through, like Sam said, and just find the numbers, pick the ones they want. And when you have a lot of photos that you're going through, that is worth the money.
That's great. Yeah, time is money, and that I think it's it makes you look more professional, and then like you said, it makes you more efficient.
And a lot of those sites, a lot of those sites will let you build a website. So
cool. So just a refresher. So I use Google Drive for just photo backups, but then I also upload folders to Google Photos for a little bit more of a just better presentation for when I'm sharing photos with my friends and family. Just if I have a folder or an album from, vacation, it's a great way to share. Will, you use Zenfolio, sometimes Google.
Sometimes I'll use Google for like real quick stuff if I know they don't have to choose anything, and then Adobe Lightroom and Apple for personal stuff.
And Sam,
I've also, with the recent work I've been doing, with these concerts and event spaces, they'll send me a link and say,
oh, drop it here.
Like upload your photos here when you're finished. And then that's their process of working. So it's always different. But I only use classic Lightroom, never use the cloud one. Okay,
cool. All right. Go ahead.
I really want to just get rid of everything and just dive fully into Adobe. I know we were talking about this in our Plus community about diving into using the whole Adobe system when it comes to this stuff, because you can link your Lightroom straight to a creative portfolio, the Adobe portfolio. And I've been playing with it, but it's a lot of work to like take down my website, reconnect my website to this new thing, and do the whole thing.
I think it's better when it's like portfolio driven. I think if you're doing lots of big client work, it might be a lot.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's a great transition into Lightroom organization, which is what I think a lot of people are here for. And Lightroom, when we talk about Lightroom, we're mostly talking about Lightroom Classic, which we think is the best option for lots of editing, professional editing work. The new Photoshop Lightroom app, that it's not new anymore. It was released 4 or 5 years ago. Initially, that's also great. And you can do a lot of what you can do with Lightroom Classic in Lightroom. And also, I want to say, because not everyone edits in Lightroom, I don't know what every other editing app has in terms of organization, but a lot can be applied from what we're going to talk about here. So just an overview of what happens with Lightroom. You're going to import your photos through the library space. And then the organization method is what Lightroom calls collections. So you can create, and they're basically like folders. And then within collections, or with collections, you can create collection sets for project type or however you want to organize. You could do it by date, create 2022 folders or 2023 folders or client folders or whatever. And we'll actually jump into Lightroom in a minute. So in Lightroom, if you are using not Lightroom Classic, if you're just using regular Lightroom, collections are the same as albums and collection sets are the same as folders, which they should just call it that in Lightroom Classic. It makes way more sense. And probably within whatever other photo editing app you're using, they'll call it something like albums or folders. Something to note though, for new Lightroom users, if you're using Lightroom Classic, what it's doing when you're importing photos, it's not actually like saving your photos into a Lightroom catalog or collection. It's just referencing the photos that you have saved onto your external hard drive or on your working computer or wherever you're working from. And that's why it's so important to maintain the organization on your computer as well as in Lightroom, so that you know how to find your photos if you need to do that. So if you move your photos, if you disconnect your hard drive you're working on and you try to open up Lightroom Classic to edit, you're not going to be able to edit those photos until you reconnect your hard drive. If you are editing with the new Photoshop Lightroom, it's in the cloud, so you import your photos and it's going to be backed up. And that's one of the benefits of it, is you can edit on your computer, then you walk away, you're out taking the train to work, and you can edit on your phone or your iPad or whatever.
As long as
and so that's one of the benefits of Lightroom. Yeah, as long as you're connected to the internet. Okay, so with Lightroom organization, let's see, you can also access photos. Oh, this is something we'll see, but along with organizing by custom collections or albums, you can always go in Lightroom and find the folder on your hard drive as well, which we'll see once we open up Lightroom. Now, we need to talk about Lightroom catalogs, what's the best way to explain a catalog, Will?
It's like a project file, I'd say.
Yeah.
People don't know what that
I think most people don't even think about catalog, or they'll see like, oh, back up your catalog, and they'll just say yes. They don't know. But when you open up Lightroom Classic, it's opening up a catalog. So it's kind of like a project. It's like a file, and within that catalog are all of the imports you've done, all the organization you've done, all the ratings and edits you've done. And some people, like Will, actually create separate catalogs for everything, either for individual projects like individual weddings, or what I think is probably practical for a lot of people is to have a personal catalog versus a professional catalog, or a weddings catalog and then a headshots catalog. Or you could have it all in one, everything you do in one catalog. But
you know what I was equating it to, because I've had a peek into Will's world here.
He's been looking at all the things.
It's almost as if, I feel like, Phil, at least for myself, I don't deal with catalogs. I have one catalog, it has everything in it. It's organized, but I'm realizing that it's almost like having a Word document or like a journal that I journal all my personal stuff in, all my work stuff in, all my financial stuff in, and it's all in one massive thing. And that instead I could have many journals, one for this project, one for my personal life, one for my finance life, and
Mhm.
you keep them separate from one another. And like,
Yeah.
it makes so much sense in my brain now as to why you would want to have separate catalogs for each client or each kind of thing.
Mhm.
Because even in that sense, you can then save that catalog with that hard drive where you've backed things up, or that folder where you've backed up those photos. So instead
Yeah.
of trying to find the folder where the catalog is, you just find that folder, you open the catalog, and it's connected to the photos that are right there. It
Okay,
makes so
let's break that down just a little bit, because I think
Yeah.
that's a very important
I've been
part,
doing
because
it
I
wrong.
think what Sam does is what I do. I just have one catalog for everything that I do. And then like once in a while when I update Lightroom, it's like, oh, do you want to start a new catalog? I'm like, sure. And then I lose everything that I've done and I just start from scratch again. And so I think it is better. Colleen says we need visuals.
We should show Will's thing, because it
Okay,
is.
let's head into Lightroom right
Yeah.
now. What we're gonna do is look at Will's catalogs and organization, how he does it. Talk about. I'll show my within Lightroom as well as an alternative. We'll talk about smart collections and stuff.
What do you want to see first?
So
You want to see my file structure or my Lightroom?
let's look at your file
I
structure.
just have an example of
Yeah.
one of my file structures. So here, let me.
Yeah, go ahead, share your screen, and if you see me turning around during this presentation or hear any kids in the background, that's because my daughter's in the background.
She's been an angel. I haven't heard anything from her.
I know, she has been so good. She deserves a treat after this.
So actually, so Phil, can you see that? Okay, you can see
Yep.
the
High
finder.
screen. Sorry.
You can see the finder there. Okay.
Yep, looks good.
Okay. So right now, I just jumped over to a new hard drive. This is my travel hard drive because I have been traveling. This Casey method is actually just a backup. I just tossed in here because I had to, because I was moving quickly. But you can see these are the last two things I shot. So Emily Kinsey, and this is her Lightroom folder. And so basically, like, this is where I hold the catalog for Emily. But also in this folder is her raw photos. So this was the A camera that I used, and all the DNGs are there. This was the B camera that I used. And again, like, all the DNGs are there. Clearly there's some and some, not any others. And then at some point I will create, and I can do that right now, I will create an export folder. And that's where I'm going to start exporting like all the different photos to it.
So can we, from this, well enough with screen sharing if we can do this, but can we open
Right.
that catalog?
So then we would open this catalog, and I already have a catalog open because I was going to share it with you, but I think we have to share the whole desktop.
So yeah, it's not screen sharing, but he double clicked that. It's now opened Lightroom.
Can we, I don't know how to
We have to do new share.
new share. We'll just do this. Yeah. Can you see that?
Is that sharing Lightroom, Phil?
Man,
Yep.
Oh, you can see Lightroom?
Yep.
So now within the Lightroom, because I haven't done a ton of it, this is her entire library. And if we go over to collections, we can see what I did. Like, yeah, see, so I already went through
This is so interesting how you organize
It's so different.
yourself.
so like
I think this is going to be good for a lot of people watching this as a brand new idea, which
yeah,
seems so clean.
Yeah.
so these are all the raws, and there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's, I mean, you can see over here, there's 3,807, which is a little overkill, but it was my niece, so I went overkill. And then I went through it once and I created a new cull. So 923, I call it culling, like going through it or whatever. But even if you went to raw and you organized them by rating, like you can see, I only want to see the 4 stars. You can see that there are, let's go 3 stars. There are probably 923. Yeah. So really, I just took all those rated ones and I made a new collection for it. And then I went through those and I rated them up to, I think 4 stars at that point, and got down to 476. And that is the master edits. And that is what I've been working on lately. I've been editing these. And since we've moved, I've now lost my place. So I have to figure out.
So okay, so there was a question earlier. So how do you save, so you've created this catalog, but how did you get going? Did you go up to file and say start new catalog?
All right,
before
yeah,
you
go to file. I don't know, can you see this right now?
Yep. Yeah.
and you can go new
just say
new catalog when you're in an old catalog and just type it out, and then you put it like, oh, I want to make sure it's in this wedding I shot, Lightroom.
Could you, with the
Mhm.
Casey method, because that's just raw photos. So
Oh, yeah.
let's say you've just downloaded
Let's do that.
those photos.
Let's do Casey method.
So the raw photos are, you download the card onto this hard drive. He then creates a folder for Lightroom and saves the catalog to there.
I'm not going to back this up.
And I think for people watching this, they might not want to create a new catalog for every project, but maybe they would be like, let's create a catalog for my
Right.
personal stuff. And so that's
Now
what you do.
I'm in Casey method up here at the top that you can see that, Phil, where it says Casey method.
Yep.
And then I would go import. And then I would go find my RAWs under July backup. That's what it's called right now. Casey method. Here are the RAWs.
It's all organized, so it's in the
Already all
folder, right
organized.
folders.
And here are all the photos.
And this is a question I think I was chatting with Sam about. So do you just import all your photos before you
Yeah,
rate
baby.
them, or do you filter at all?
Nope, because I save everything. So I put build smart previews because I want to be able to look through them quickly once I'm ready to catalog them, and I'll hit import. And it's all of them. And you can see up here in the upper left, it'll import them faster than it will to build the previews because the files are already on the drive. Like we don't have to transfer them from a card to the Lightroom. It's literally just going, okay, these are the ones I'm going to reference. And then it's building smart previews, although I think my camera actually already does do smart previews. So you don't necessarily need to do that. So I could probably cancel that.
And this is another thing. If you're on a hard drive, this process of creating those previews and all this work that's doing in the background, it'll take longer if you're on like a slower hard drive.
What, there's me.
Oh, hey, well.
Oh man, this is a whole thing.
And there was another thing that you could have done when you were importing, and there was a little tick box for add to a collection, which
Right.
is another way to say you have multiple projects in your one catalog, you can add it to a collection from the import. You can also do that after the fact. So were you going to show how you create a collection from here?
Sure. Like all you have to do would be, I'm trying to like, this job, I had to do a bunch of headshots. So I was looking for the headshots because they're all next to each other, but we can just do the before after. So let's say I just wanted to get these headshots into a new collection. I would highlight them, and then I would click the plus sign, and then I would create a collection, and I'd be like before, oops, headshots, and then
call it, yeah. And so, go ahead.
Yeah, include photos. You can do a virtual copy. That's what I do when I'm doing black and white stuff. Otherwise, the collection set is like a higher level folder where you can put multiple collections in.
So if he wanted to do like headshots, he could create a collection set of headshots. And then within that collection set, there could be various collections of,
Well, we should open my Lightroom.
Jamie.
I'll show you. I'll show my Lightroom, and we can see that. But
Well, I
yeah,
just
so
wanted to show you-
Colleen's asking
ahead.
what's the difference between collections and folders. A collection is a folder. Basically.
Well, actually,
Great
I guess
questions.
within Lightroom, though, there is a folders tab.
Yeah, this is the
Oh
one
yeah,
show you
okay,
guys. We
yeah.
got- we
That's
got
how
way off-
you.
We got way off track from what I wanted to show you. Because the headshot catalog I'm opening, and that will explain to you way more deep into folders. My computer is like,
Maybe let me share my Lightroom for a minute while you get. Or are you set up?
yeah, it should be opening.
Okay.
I had it open, ready to
So
go.
this is what happens when you work off of a slow hard drive.
And when you're doing things live, I know we're at the top of the hour for people who are watching this live, but we're just gonna keep going for a little bit longer.
You need the
get
headshots
through everything.
Lightroom.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so each one of these folders is a client. And each one of these is in collections, a collection set. And when you drill down the collection set, I have another collection set for the date of our photo shoot. And when you drill that down, now you have actual collections. So the raw collection that I did, the selects that were my favorites that I sent to the client so she could pick out the ones she wanted, and then the ones she decided that she wanted. And then from here, I edited these and then I'll export these to give to said client. Now that all being said, like you said earlier, you can go into folders, but the folders section is to like get you to look at your actual hard drive. So you would like see, you know,
which is a good thing to have in case you are looking for folder photos. Maybe you didn't add them to a collection, but you're like, oh, I need to find those photos. I know I already imported them into Lightroom before, so you can find them, and you know where they are on a hard drive.
Yeah.
And you can find them this way. So this is just accessing your computer's organization, basically.
You can also, like, if you were to go to like Faye's, like, oh, I need to find this raw folder file because she wanted to do it. You can right click it and you can show folder in library, or you can show folder in Finder, which is your actual, you know, desktop.
Yeah. So just to clarify, to Colleen's asking about the folders and subfolders. So the collection set is like above folder. So go click that plus button, Will, and create a new collection set. So if you want to create something that is like a master folder, it's a collection set basically.
Yeah. So the idea would be that if you just use one catalog, Will's method of many catalogs, your collection.
Let me show you. And let me show my Lightroom, which I think, Sam, you can explain kind of what that is.
Yeah, we do the same thing, which I'm no longer going to do because I'm frustrated by my own organization.
Which is why my regular Lightroom is all personal stuff.
So I don't have all of my history of photos in this catalog because, like I said, a year or two when I upgraded Lightroom, it was like, here, create a new Lightroom catalog. And I was like, click yes. And so I don't have everything, but here's an alternative way you can organize. And it's really up to you. But like for me, I have a video school folder. And under that right now, I just have a headshot subfolder. And so these master folders here are collection sets, and then within some of these, like for Photo Friends, I have some of the different projects that we've done, and photos can be in multiple collections as well if you want to organize it that way. And so say let's see, under catalog you can see all of your photos. You could also see your previous imports. So say I have a few photos here that I want to add to a new collection under family. So I already have Aquarium of the Pacific, which these are under, but say I select 3 of them, I can either right click and choose collection. Where's add collection? It's already in a collection, but from here, from this folder menu over here, I can click the plus sign and I can say create collection, and then say this is a new shoot, for example. I would title it 7, whatever. Imagine this is like a different thing, Halloween 2. I already have another one. And then I would just, while I do this, just throw it inside a collection set, the master folder for family.
This one.
And now that pops up as a new folder here. And in here, you can drag and drop your folders into other collection sets. So with different from Will, I don't have like sub selects or edits folders. Like I don't cull my photos through subfolders, which I think is really a handy way to organize. But rather what I would do is I would have all of my photos, let's say these ones, and then I rate them. So I'm not sure if I've actually rated these photos or not, but typically what I would do, I would have a star rating, and I'll give my favorite photos the best of the best, a 5-star. So the ones that are okay, 4-star, the ones that I still want to edit, 3 stars. And so I can just filter that way. I see a couple of chats.
I'm trying to respond to Colin for you.
So another thing I'll mention too, if there's an important question though, let's talk about, is smart collections, which are pretty cool. Have you guys played around with smart collections at all?
I haven't, just because I don't know. I'm very particular about what I need, so I haven't messed with that. But
I've definitely used
So-
smart collections, and it all comes down to, I think, that initial call that Will was talking about, of how you star
Mhm.
rate things. You can tag like various keywords on different photos. You can do color
Mhm.
coordination. There's so many different ways you can do it, and then you can basically say, okay, if you're diligent, and every time you do a headshot, like the headshot photo, you write into the keywords, this is headshot, or this is, kids photos.
Yeah.
You can then create a smart collection that automatically, every time you add that keyword now, it's going to create, go to that folder. And it can be really useful for, like, if you're not using just the one catalog method, but if you have everything in one catalog,
Yeah.
pull it all to that one spot.
For a while there, what I had done is I was organizing smart collections by month, and you can see just a couple examples of what I have. Like, so you can use the keywords to pull all my photos from my X-T2 or X-T4, or photos that I've star rated 5, which is awesome because then you can see like all of your best photos if you use that as your rating method. Or like you can set it up so that it automatically will create bring all your photos by month. So at the beginning of the year, what you could do is set up a smart collection, which you do by clicking the plus button, say create smart collection, and then you choose what filter you want. So
cool. I
by
didn't know
date,
this.
for example, and say capture date is, or is in the range from, January, let's say,
So this is really great if you have one big giant catalog.
yeah, like January
narrow in.
1st, 2023 to January 31st, 2023. And then you set this up ahead of time for all the months, for example. And I'm going to call this 0123. You set it up for each month, and you could put this in a different folder as well.
Oh, cool.
And then whenever you import photos,
We'll
it's just going to automatically be added to that month. If that makes sense in your brain to organize by month. But the other thing too is, like, if you're like, oh, I want to find all my photos that I shot with a 16 millimeter lens. Let's see if this works.
Colleen had a quick question.
So here's all my photos now that I shot with my 16 millimeter lens.
Ooh.
And then you could also, within that smart collection, add another parameter.
Yeah,
for 16 millimeter with 5-star, or 16 millimeter
Yes.
in, whatever. Yeah.
Basically,
So yeah, that gets pretty advanced there, but something to play around with.
Colleen asked about backing up like the edits and stuff. And like, I just wanted to explain really quick. Lightroom is just accessing your photos and holding information of what you want to do organizationally and edit wise. It's non-destructive, which means it's not doing anything physically to your raw files. So when you back up the Lightroom catalog, you're backing up all the organizational information, all the edit information, so that you'd be able to link that catalog with your raw photos and then export that stuff when you need to. So you do need to back up your raw files. That's great. But that's why backing up the Lightroom catalog is so important, because all your time and work into organization, into your edits, not necessarily the photo with the edit applied, but the edits themselves is important to back up. So I know that's like super heady and complicated, but.
So just kind of like a general overview of what you might want to do. You can still see my whole Lightroom, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what you should do with whether you're, the one method is Will's method of having an individual catalog for different projects, but an alternative is to have one catalog for all of your work. And what you want to do is create your collection sets ahead of time. Or I mean, this can be done afterwards, but I'm assuming you've been working. And so ideally you have like the folders, however you want to set them up, like your headshots folder, your family portraits, your weddings, or whatever. And so when you go to import, I would say this is probably the best practice. It's not what everyone's going to do, but say, let's just grab some random photos from my backup drive. See what these are. Oh, red photos. Great. So say I want to import these photos. From here, what I would do is say add to collection. And then you can create a new collection and just call it whatever, 8 bread. Have it within the folder or the collection set you want, and create. And so when you import it, it's automatically added to there. Now, this can all be done after you import as well, but I would say that's probably a good practice, is to have all your master collection set folders created. And then as soon as you import, either while you're importing or after it's imported, add it to a subfolder so that you stay organized.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like the best. I mean, part of the reason I have these catalogs and these folders too is I was talking to Colleen, like I can take this external hard drive, plug it into Phil's computer or Sam's computer, go to my file structure, open my catalog that's already connected to the RAWs that are on the same drive, and everything will be there. And it's part of the reason when I used to have a desktop that I couldn't move, but then I also wanted to edit on my laptop mobilely, I'd be able to get everything all the time by just carrying a hard drive around. Yeah.
And I think after talking through this, I think it's probably best practice to have separate catalogs for personal and work.
Yeah.
I think that just makes sense, but
after talking to you,
do what you want.
Would love to have one Lightroom Classic catalog for my personal stuff. Although like I said, I use Lightroom for my personal stuff. So like I put them on a drive somewhere, but then I only import the photos that I actually like care about into Lightroom, because I use them on the iPad, on the phone, on the computer, and like all my personal stuff's there.
And then I think this is out of the scope of this workshop, but there's all the different ways to organize photos within Lightroom in terms of rating and labels.
Oh, yeah.
And again, that's up to however you want. Like I mentioned, like I use the star ratings to have 5 different levels of rating, but then on top of that, you can use the color rating or color labels as like, these are flags, selects. So all of that, like, again, is just for you to decide what makes sense most in your mind of how I can choose which photos I like versus don't.
Did you want to do my Zen really quick, or do you want to?
Let's do a quick Zen. If there's any last questions, pop them in the chat now, but we're going to close this out quickly. But yeah, just show your Zenfolio just to show like what the options are, like a brief back end, how it looks.
So basically, like we were talking about, this is actually what my catalog setup should be on the post side with delivering to clients. I have a headshot and portraits. You can see this, Phil, okay? I know you're busy, but headshots and portraits, weddings and events, family photos, real estate, and product photography. And so within these, this is how I would organize my delivery to the subject. So like if we click on weddings and events, we'll see that these are the most recent weddings I have. I cleaned this up a little bit ago, but you can see even down here, if we drill this down, we could then go to a wedding, like under Rachel and Michael on the left here. That's like their master folder. And the internet's slow here. And then just like Lightroom, actually probably should have showed you this Lightroom catalog, but there are folders for each and everything. And that's how they can get into like seeing, like, this is the edits that they'll be able to download. And the cool thing is for me with Zenfolio is like, when you preview it and you actually look at it, it looks really clean and really nice, but the internet is moving slow.
Listen,
Zen is a little slow, to be honest. So then this is what my client will see, right? They'll see these are the photos, and then when they click on one,
so clean.
Yeah, when they click on one, it'll look nice, right? It resizes the photos to look like a nice presentation. They'll be able to
Mhm.
favorite them. I have this open so that you can actually order prints through Zen. So if they share this link with their guests, they can buy prints and I'll make money. But yeah, and then they'll be able to download each section, you know, fairly easily, and it looks nice when you actually see the bigger photo. It's just a nicer way to present and deliver stuff. But
Yeah.
also it works so seamlessly with Lightroom that you don't even need to like be doing anything. This is actually one of my favorite weddings that I've shot.
Is there, sorry, did you explain already? Is there a specific method that you have to upload, like the raw photos for it to connect to Lightroom, or is it just the file
No,
naming?
it's more about just like the way it's organized. And then I guess like if you go, if like you would just kind of start like a new gallery and you just title it something and then you just import files. Like there's no difference. But
But what
the
about that? You mentioned like if some people make selects here, it's
oh right.
automatically created in Lightroom.
Yeah. So actually up here in the top left is favorites. And so these are basically favorite lists that people have sent to me. And like, you know, they'll name up something like Faye is a good one we've been talking about. And basically you would go over here and you would export a list. You see it's downloading down here. And then this CSV, which is basically a spreadsheet.
Excel file, yeah.
Lightroom will read and it will take that and it will create a collection of that in your Lightroom. So without you having to go through, and like you could go here and I could be like, okay, let's look at her favorites. And then like write down the numbers and then go back. Like you can see these are the ones. But since the naming has stayed the same, these are all
well, that's what I was wondering, if if the naming of the files has to stay the same. I mean, I don't think many people are renaming unless like the metadata some,
but I don't rename them because across the board, just you know, I leave them the same, especially for headshot clients. But you can see the organization is still the same. Like this list here on the left looks exactly like my Lightroom list.
And I think that's the key takeaway from all of this, is that your organization should stay the same throughout your hard drives within your Lightroom, and then also cloud. I guess hard drive to Lightroom, you do a really good job at matching. A lot of people like me, I guess I have like my photos and folders by date on my hard drive, but within Lightroom it's by style or project or whatever. Oh,
look at this cute family.
Dude, are you gonna be here in the next couple months? Because we need new photos.
I can't be.
But yeah, so stay organized, stay with your naming conventions and everything. So I think that is it. Big workshop. If you're watching the replay, I hope this helps.
We went through a lot very quickly.
We went through a lot, and I think what you'll take away is that while it is different for different people, there are some best practices, and you might have even known all this stuff already. It's just like, hopefully this is a kick in the butt to get going or to restart your organization.
It is never too late to get better about how you move forward with organization. It takes a lot to set up everything you've done in the past and get it updated into that. But if you develop a best practices moving forward, like just start doing that when you take photos. Like find a way that is a process where everything's backed up, where you know how you can find your photos, whether it's using one catalog or multiple, whatever it is. But it's a little techy. It can be a little overwhelming, but it makes such a big difference, especially once you start working with clients.
Yeah, I mean, Colleen herself, I've been watching your Instagram, like one of our students here, like you have a lot of organization, I'm sure, with every different family and every different person you're shooting. It's good to get on it now.
Yeah. But if there's any questions after the fact, we're always here to help. Post to the course or to Plus or wherever you're watching this, and we'll be happy to help. All right. Thank you, everyone. Will and Sam, thanks for being here, and we'll see you on another workshop soon. Have a beautiful day, everyone. And we'll
Everyone.
talk soon.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.